Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. Tonight, a judge unsealed the FBI search warrant executed at former President Trump's home. They uncovered 11 sets of classified documents from Mar-a-Lago, including documents about nuclear weapons. Also tonight, the shocking attack on the stage of author Salman Rushdie, stabbed in the neck. The writer, who lived in hiding for years under threats from Iran, flown to the hospital and is now in ventilator. One person died and dozens more injured early Saturday as a powerful wind hit a musical festival near the Spanish resort of Valencia. It caused the stage to partially collapse. The incident occurred shortly after 4 a.m. at the Medusa Circus of Madness Dance Music Festival on Calera Beach. And here in the Philippines, Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian has resigned from his post at the Department of Agriculture following his role in the unauthorized signing of a sugar importation order. Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles said he admitted that President Marcos Jr. did not give his authorization on the issuance of the order. In our news, police in Western New York are investigating an attack on author Salman Rushdie. Rushdie was on stage during an event when someone punched him and stabbed him in the neck. The author was then airlifted to the hospital.
I'm going to be able to provide. The suspect has been identified as Hadi Matar, age 24, from Fairview, New Jersey. Earlier today at approximately 10:47 a.m., guest speakers Salman Rushdie, age 75, and Ralph Henry Reese, age 73, had just arrived on stage at the institution. Shortly thereafter, the suspect jumped onto the stage and attacked Mr. Rushdie, stabbing him at least once in the neck and at least once in the abdomen.
Officials said he is now on a ventilator and could lose an eye following the stabbing attack at a literary event in New York State Friday. The suspect is in custody, and it's still unclear what the motive was for the attack. Rushdie's writings have led to death threats in the past, including an order for his execution by Iran in the 1980s. Rushdie, 75 years old, was propelled into the spotlight with his second novel, Midnight's Children, in 1981, which won international praise and Britain's prestigious Booker Prize for its portrayal of post-independence India. But his 1988 book, The Satanic Verses, transformed his life when Iran's first supreme leader, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, issued a fatwa, or religious decree, ordering his killing. The novel was considered by some Muslims as disrespectful of Islam and their prophet Muhammad. Rushdie, who was born in India to non-practicing Muslims and today identifies as an atheist, was forced to go underground as a bounty was put on his head, which remains today. And we now go to the Trump investigation with developments from the Justice Department's decision to seek a search warrant for former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. And in a news conference yesterday, he said the Justice Department said they personally signed off on the decision to search Trump's estate. He also announced the Justice Department was asking to make the warrant available to the public. Let's listen in.
I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken.
FBI agents seized records marked top secret during their search of former President Trump's Florida estate, according to documents made public on Friday. Among the records seized during the raid were documents marked top secret, secret, and confidential. Some of the papers were marked SCI, meaning sensitive compartment information, meaning they were meant to be viewed only in secure government facilities. FBI agents also seized binders of photos, a handwritten note, information about the president of France, and the grant of clemency made by Trump to Roger Stone, an ally of the former president, according to the list. The Justice Department had asked a federal judge to unseal the search warrant on Friday, bearing objections from Trump. The 76-year-old Trump did not block the release, but complained that he was the victim of unprecedented political weaponization of law enforcement by radical left Democrats. Legal experts cautioned that while the warrant cites the Espionage Act, any potential charges remain unclear, and Trump is not necessarily suspected of espionage. Orrin Kerr, a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, agreed, saying the Espionage Act is a pretty broad law about mishandling classified documents, not just espionage. And we learned more about the armed suspect who tried to storm an FBI office in Cincinnati, Ohio, and shot and killed yesterday by law enforcement, and his apparent connection to the January 6th riot insurrection. Let's listen in.
After a time, the negotiations failed. We were unsuccessful with that. Then, at that point, law enforcement started to work toward moving in and taking the suspect into custody. Less than lethal tactics were utilized at that time. They were also unsuccessful. The suspect then did raise a firearm toward law enforcement, and shots were fired by law enforcement officers on the scene.
Two officials familiar with the matter identified the suspect as Ricky Schiffer. Local officials also said he made several posts on social media about his desire to kill FBI agents after former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence was raided. The FBI said Thursday that a person armed with a weapon had tried to breach the entry to the Bureau's office in the city of Cincinnati. According to local media, the man fired a nail gun and brandished an AR-15 style rifle before fleeing by car. A police spokesman, meanwhile, said the vehicle was pursued by law enforcement and that it stopped in a rural area. Officers then attempted to negotiate with the suspect, but he did not surrender. After the suspect raised a weapon towards the police, officers shot him and he succumbed to his injuries at the scene. He reportedly posted on Truth Social that he hoped his actions would serve as a call to arms. In tonight's Southern News, one person died and dozens more were injured early Saturday as powerful winds hit a musical festival near the Spanish resort of Valencia, causing the stage to partially collapse, according to medics. The incident occurred shortly after 4 a.m. local time at the Medusa Circus of Madness Dance Music Festival on Calera Beach, some 30 kilometers south of Valencia. Media reports said a young man in his early 20s died after being hit by parts of the stage as it collapsed at the event, which had been expected to draw some 320,000 festival goers. They also said some of the large structures making up the festival entrance also blew down. Footage on social media showed powerful winds sweeping through the venue, trees and large structures bending dangerously and debris flying everywhere as people fought to hold on to their tents and salvage their belongings. Spain's AMET Weather Service said the Valencian coast had been hit overnight by various, quote, warm downbursts, a weather event in which a powerful downward current of air hits land and then spreads out in all directions. Here in the country, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake jolted Antique this afternoon, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. The tectonic quake struck 20 kilometers southwest of the municipality of Anini at 12:25 p.m. local time. It was 6 kilometers deep. Intensity 4 was felt in Anini Tobias Fournier and San Jose de Buena Vista in Antique, while intensity 3 was reported in Belizon and Sibalom, Antique, and Iloilo City. A Facebook post by Florence Hibionada of Iloilo City said the tremor was strong enough to get their chandelier swaying for nearly 2 minutes and caused neighborhood car alarms to go off. Intensity 2 was also felt in Bugasong, Barbaza, and Patnongon, Antique. Reported intensity is the traditional way of knowing the intensity based on reports of people who felt the earthquake. Aftershocks are likely, but damage is not expected from the magnitude 5.1 quake. And UN Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez expressed his deep solidarity with the people and government of the Republic of Korea after deadly flooding and landslides. At least 13 people died as some of the heaviest rainfall in decades left parts of Seoul submerged when the Han River burst into its banks. The UN World Meteorological Organization tweeted on Tuesday that 451 millimeters of rain, or 17.8 inches, had been recorded in the Seoul area in less than 48 hours and that more was to come. According to reports, the country has seen its longest monsoon in 7 years. Landslides also forced 1,500 people from their homes, and Prime Minister Chung Si-kyun called for the provinces of Gyeonggi and Jeoncheon to be declared disaster zones. Meanwhile, Seoul has vowed to move some of the city's poorest families out of underground and semi-subterranean homes. The deaths, which included a family who drowned after becoming trapped underground, have spurred the South Korean capital to put an end to people living in Banjiha homes, the often cramped and dingy basement apartments made famous by the movie Parasite. The family of 3, a woman in her 40s with Down syndrome, her sister, and the sister's 13-year-old daughter died after water pressure prevented them from opening the door of their flooded home in Seoul's southern Gwanak district. Thousands of fish have washed up dead on the Oder River, running through Germany and Poland, and it sparked warnings of an environmental disaster as residents are urged to stay away from the water. Take a look.
Und ich sehe, die Tiere sterben. Ich weiß, dass die Fischer ihre Existenz verlieren, dass unsere Nationalparkbesucher, die ihre Natur und Wildnis erleben wollen, über Jahre wahrscheinlich wegbleiben werden. Jetzt kommen vielleicht ein paar Katastrophentouristen und das war es dann gewesen. Wir haben Kanuverleiher in der Region und all die sind natürlich auch betroffen.
The fish floating by the German banks near the eastern town of Schwedt are believed to have washed upstream from Poland, where first reports of mass fish deaths were made by locals and anglers as early as on July 28. Almost 2 weeks after the first dead fish appeared floating by Polish villages, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki said on Friday that everyone had initially thought that it was a local problem. But he admitted that the scale of the disaster is very large, sufficiently large to say that the otter will need years to recover its natural state. Early reports had suggested indications of extremely high levels of mercury, but another batch of preliminary results released on Friday evening showed unusually high levels of salt. Authorities said they were inconclusive and that further test results on heavy metals and mercury were pending. French firefighters were keeping a wary eye on a huge blaze that appeared to be contained in the country's southwest, with thunderstorms and strong wind gusts expected in the area overnight today. The 40-kilometer or 25-mile fire front in the Gironde and land departments around Bordeaux did not significantly progress overnight, and firefighters are working on its periphery, according to police in a statement. But officials said it was premature to say that the blaze, which has already reignited once, was under control. Weather forecasters are expecting thunderstorms with wind gusts of up to 60 kilometers an hour in the region in the evening. EU members, including Germany, Poland, Austria, and Romania, have pledged reinforcements. The blaze near Bordeaux erupted in July, the driest month seen in France since 1961, destroying 14,000 hectares and forcing thousands of people to evacuate before it was contained. France has been buffeted this summer by a historic drought that has forced water use restrictions nationwide, as well as a series of heat waves that experts say are being driven by climate change. And there's been a drought declaration in parts of England. We have that report from our UK bureau, Love and Season. Love Anne, please tell us more about what the Environment Agency has been saying there.
The UK government on Friday officially declared a drought in several parts of England following months of record low rainfall and unprecedented temperatures in recent weeks. At a meeting of the National Drought Group, the government's Environment Agency said the drought trigger threshold had been met in parts of southwestern, southern, central and eastern England. Drought was last officially declared in England in 2018. The Environment Agency on Friday published a report saying that England as a whole had its driest July since 1935. The Met Office, the UK's meteorological authority, said the period from January to June this year saw the least rainfall in England and Wales since 1976. That summer saw the use of drastic measures such as roadside standpipes and water rationing.
We do fully expect to perhaps lose a couple of our species or rarer plant, but we will try and do the best that we can. Where we can water, we will water, but we're finding that a lot of water will just run off. The ground's so hard, so it's that sort of combination between being frugal with the water, not wasting it, and trying to get as much moisture down to the roots of the plants as we can.
And we use, in a normal season, we use about 160 million gallons of water every year to keep our 1,200 acres of irrigated root crops satisfied. This season we've probably used about 210, 220 million gallons, so that's a significant increase in usage. The crops that we can't irrigate are the ones that we're most concerned about. So because we've utilised all of our water this season, we've got no ability to irrigate crops of sugar beet and forage maize. So we're estimating at this present point in time that we'll see a yield reduction of about 50%. And then the massive concern is that if it doesn't rain sufficiently to fill our chalk aquifers and let the rivers flow, that we're not going to be able to fill these reservoirs for next growing season, at which point we'll have to make some very difficult decisions as to what quantity of crops we plant next year.
Temperatures were expected to hit the mid-30s Celsius, peaking on Friday and the weekend, after which showers and thunderstorms were forecast. Temperatures were not expected to hit the record level seen in July, when a temperature of 40.3 Celsius was recorded in Lincolnshire in northeastern England on July 20, during an unprecedented heat wave. The National Climate Information Centre said that such high temperatures in the UK were only possible due to human-induced climate change. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Love and Season. We live in extraordinary times. Back to you.
The World Meteorological Agency said last month that it marked one of the 3 hottest Julys ever recorded, with global temperatures measuring nearly half a degree above average. Scientists say that recurring heat waves are a clear marker of global warming. And last month, the WMO warned that heat waves, like the ones making Western Europe, were becoming more frequent and were set to become a new normal in the decades to come. From Geneva, Switzerland, here's Christine Benedicto. Christine.
Many of us have just experienced one of the 3 warmest Julys on record, according to the UN World Meteorological Organization, or WMO. Temperatures were close to 0.4 degrees Celsius above the average of 1991 to 2020 across much of Europe, with southwestern and western Europe being the most above average regions because of an intense heat wave around mid-July. Maximum temperatures were broken in Portugal, Western France, and Ireland, while England saw record 40 degrees Celsius readings for the first time.
Using data from the European Commission's Copernicus Climate Change Service, the UN Weather Agency confirmed that this was the joint 6th warmest July for Europe. Below average temperatures were observed along the western Indian Ocean, from the Horn of Africa to southern India, over much of Central Asia, as well as over most of Australia. They also dominated a band of territory stretching from Iceland across Scandinavia via the Baltic countries, continuing as far as the Caspian Sea.
Arctic sea ice was 4% below average, ranking 12th lowest for July, according to satellite records, which started in 1979. I'm Christine Benedicto reporting from Geneva, Switzerland. We live in extraordinary times. Back to you, Alma.
Meanwhile, the United Nations said a historic drought in Somalia has now displaced 1 million people and left the country in the shadow of famine.
The UN Refugee Agency, along with the Norwegian Refugee Council, today said that more than 755,000 people have been internally displaced in Somalia because of the severe drought this year. This brings the total figure to 1 million people now registered as displaced within the country since January 2021, when the drought began. UNHCR and the National Refugee Council noted that the number of people facing crisis hunger levels in Somalia is expected to rise from 5 million to more than 7 million in the coming months, worsened by the effects of climate change and rising food prices because of the conflict in Ukraine. In June, UNHCR announced that it needs $9.5 million for Somalia as part of its regional appeal for the Horn of Africa to help displaced communities affected by catastrophic drought.
On Friday, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization warned of a major risk of famine in 8 areas by September if crop and livestock production failure was widespread, commodity prices continued to rise, and humanitarian assistance failed to reach the most vulnerable. It also said the world could not wait for famine to be formally declared before taking action to save lives. The news continues. Zero and Eagle News will be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Etong guest natin ngayon. Pero ang ina ng lahat, walang iba, ang loveliness, Miss Alma!
Pwede ko mong sumingit. Isa lang yung mga tweet. Salamat.
Wala pong barcode to.
Ay, isa lang naman ang klase ng mansanas.
Bibigyan kita ng 1 milyon. Layuan mo nga ako.
Kung gagawin nyo 1.5, sige o, inyo na yung anak nyo.
Tulad ko, kayo ba ay laging nag-a-add to cart?
Palagi ka rin bang may reminder na 0808 o payday sale? Magmula ng pandemic, marami sa atin ang biglang namulat sa mundo ng online shopping o e-commerce. What's behind enabling an e-commerce for brands and retailers? How do we manage it efficiently? Let us find out about the world of e-commerce. Sa pagkakataong ito, makakasama at kakausapin natin ang isang e-commerce enabler, Mr. Steve C., the founder and CEO of Great Deals.
In terms of converting people to buy online, there's a lot of complexity. Like what kind of content, what kind of digital image will you show? How do you manage your shop? How do you activate yung mga digital consumers natin that will convert them to buying your products? So all of these things are important. Filipino buying online is still at its nascent stage. Bagong-bago pa lang. So there's a lot of opportunity for people, to grow their online business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Taliban fighters beat women protesters and fired into the air today as they violently dispersed a rare rally in the Afghan capital, days ahead of the first anniversary of the hardline Islamist return to power. Take a look. About 40 women chanting bread, work, and freedom march in front of the Education Ministry building in Kabul before the fighters dispersed them by firing their guns into the air. Some women protesters who took refuge in nearby shops were chased and beaten by Taliban fighters with their rifle butts. The demonstrators carried a banner which read August 15 is a black day as they demanded rights to work and political participation. Since seizing control on August 15 last year, the Taliban have rolled back the marginal gains made by women during 2 decades of U.S. intervention in Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of girls have been shut out of secondary schools, while women have been barred from returning to many government jobs. Women have also been banned from traveling alone on long trips and can only visit public gardens and parks in the capital on days separate from men. Here in the country, Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian has resigned from his post at the Department of Agriculture following his role in the unauthorized signing of a sugar importation order. According to Malacanang Friday night, Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles said he admitted that President Bongbong Marcos Jr. did not give his authorization on the issuance of the order. Let's listen in.
Yesterday, a resolution was uploaded on the website of the Sugar Regulatory Administration, purportedly coming from the Sugar Regulatory Board. Resolution number 4 authorized the importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar on top of what had already been imported in May of this year. This resolution is illegal. No such meeting was authorized by the President, nor such a resolution, likewise, was not authorized. It appears that the resolution was signed for and on behalf of the President by Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian. He was not authorized to sign such a resolution because the President did not authorize the importation.
Inaamin niya na pumirma siya at ang ilang mga kasamahan dun sa board ng resolution. At inaamin niya na walang pahintulot ito ng ating Pangulo.
A copy of Sebastian's resignation letter was made public by the Office of the Press Secretary. Sebastian apologized to President Marcos and assumed responsibility for the illegal issuance of the resolution. Meantime, Cruz Angeles clarified that Executive Secretary Victor Rodriguez has no role in the sugar importation order. Cruz Angeles similarly refuted claims that Rodriguez has designated Sebastian as one of DA officials who may sign any document on behalf of the Executive Secretary and the President. She made the clarification after she earlier noted that Rodriguez ordered the creation of an importation plan. And she said Rodriguez's directive on the importation plan is not illegal. Angel has also explained that President Marcos decided to defer additional importation of sugar until the harvest season next month. Let's listen in.
It is a balancing act. The importation has to be carefully studied to protect both the consumer against the rising prices of basic commodities while ensuring at the same time that we do not destroy the local industry. As such, the only response to the query on whether or not an importation was to be made, the President answered, the President did not assent, and it was the Executive Secretary who issued the order to create an importation plan. Department of Agriculture has indicated the allegedly critical levels of sugar. However, we are also approaching harvest season. This is why the importation calls for a balancing act. Will such importation affect the harvest and the prices of our local growers? In the absence of such a determination, then we cannot issue the resolution should not have been issued with such haste as it appears to have been made.
Harvest season na po uli. Hindi pa sinasabi natin highly regulated at sensitive na commodity po ang asukal. So hindi tayo basta-basta nag-i-import para nag-i-import that might cause the deterioration or ultimate destruction of our own local industries. But importation was one of the solutions that was being suggested para magpababa ng presyo. Ang tanong, how much should be imported? When should it be imported? And should we even import? Given the fact na nandyan na nga po ang harvest season, bababa na uli po yung presyo ng asukal.
State and local officials emphasize the importance of getting vaccinations against COVID-19. Other immunizations ahead of returning to school. Reporting from Pennsylvania, here's Myla Simbulan. Myla.
August is National Immunization Awareness Month. This annual observance highlights the importance of getting recommended vaccines. The Pennsylvania Departments of Education, Health, Human Services, and Insurance remind families to ensure their children's immunizations are up to date as part of back-to-school preparations. In recent years, a change in state regulations altered the provisional period in which students could attend school without their vaccinations from 8 months to 5 days. As a reminder, children in the grades K to 12 need the following immunizations for attendance: tetanus, diphtheria, polio, MMR or measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, and chickenpox. Children entering the 7th grade also need additional immunizations of meningococcal conjugate vaccine and tetanus, diphtheria, axillular pertussis. If a child does not have at least one dose of the above immunizations, they risk exclusion from school. Additionally, while the COVID-19 vaccine is not mandatory to attend school, the Wolf administration encourages Pennsylvanians ages 5 and older to get the COVID-19 vaccine to help ensure their safety during the 2022-2023 school year. Under the Affordable Care Act, most insurance plans, including those bought through Penny, as well as the Children's Health Insurance Program or CHIP and Medicaid, are required to cover school vaccinations as a free preventive service without charging a co-payment or co-insurance. Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. We live in extraordinary times.
Here in the country, considering the possible surge of COVID cases, the Department of Education assured the public that schools were required to have an infection control plan to implement for the opening of face-to-face classes this month. The DepEd made the statement in response to the Octa Research Group's pronouncement that there may be a possible case uptick once the in-person classes resume. Let's listen in.
Siyempre po, we take the Okta research seriously. Nakakatulong naman po yan as guidance for us. However, if you look at other studies also like UNICEF, there is actually no direct correlation between in-person classes and transmission. As long as nandyan po yung minimum health and safety standards natin. Lalo na yung pagsusuot ng face mask, importante po yan. According to Department Order number 34, aside from the minimum health and safety standards required therein, kami po ay we are also asking the schools to have what we call a infection control plan or infection containment strategy. Kasi hindi nga natin masasabi, baka may mag-positive po na estudyante. Kailangan may plano yung bawat schools kung ano po yung gagawin nila.
To New York now, where health officials have found evidence of polio in the city's sewage, suggesting the virus have been circulating through the 5 boroughs. Take a look. The discovery comes weeks after a polio case was reported in Rockland County, about 30 miles northwest of Manhattan, the first one in the United States in nearly a decade. New York City's health commissioner said transmission of the virus is completely preventable through vaccines and that its reappearance should serve as a wake-up call. Polio, which notably affects children, can cause permanent paralysis of the arms and legs and even death. A vaccination site for children with a jab provided for free or at low cost has been set up. Experts from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have been dispatched to New York State to help lead testing and vaccination efforts. Overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs in Taiwan, Macau, and Israel are all safe, and they've gone back to work, according to the Department of Migrant Workers. In a press briefing, DMW Secretary Susan Ople assured the OFWs in the 3 countries are being closely monitored by the department in coordination with the Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, or OMWA, of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Take a look.
Monitoring closely the situation of our OFWs in Israel, Macau, and Taiwan, and in South Korea. And the good news is that life is back to normal, and our OFWs are safe at work. Yung OFWs natin sa China, I think in Taiwan are all okay because the restriction is business as usual. China has ended its military deals, and we are hopeful that the tensions will dissipate in time.
Ople said Macau has already lifted the suspension order for non-essential business like entertainment facilities, as there had been no new COVID-19 cases in the country for the past 14 days. About 26,043 Filipinos are working in Macau, mostly as household workers. The Philippine Overseas Labor Office, or Polio, in Macau reported to the DMW that around 70 Filipinos who tested positive for COVID received $200, about 11,000 in pesos, financial assistance from the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. The Polio office likewise distributed more than 800 care packages and 8,000 supermarket vouchers. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay tuned.
Tulad ko, kayo ba ay laging nag-a-add to cart Palagi ka rin bang may reminder na 0808 o payday sale? Magmula ng pandemic, marami sa atin ang biglang namulat sa mundo ng online shopping o e-commerce. What's behind enabling an e-commerce for brands and retailers? How do we manage it efficiently? Let us find out about the world of e-commerce. Sa pagkakataong ito, makakasama at kakausapin natin ang isang e-commerce enabler, Mr. Steve C., the founder and CEO of Great Deals.
In terms of converting people to buy online, there's a lot of complexity. Like what kind of content, what kind of digital image will you show? How do you manage your shop? How do you activate yung mga digital consumers natin that will convert them to buying your products? So all of these things are important. Filipino buying online is still at its nascent stage. Bagong-bago pa lang. So there's a lot of opportunity for people, to grow their online business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Etong guest natin ngayon. Pero ang ina ng lahat, walang iba, ang loveliness, Miss Alma!
Isa lang yung mga tweet. Salamat. Wala pong barcode to. Ay, isa lang naman ang klase ng mansanas.
Bibigyan kita ng 1 milyon. Layuan mo ang anak ko. Kung gagawin nyo 1.5, sige o, inyo na yung anak nyo.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
Natulog ka eh. Napagod ako eh. Siyempre naman, dapat matulog ang tao. Saka? Pag madaling umuwi baka maunahan pa kayo ng nanay doon. Tamad-tamad niyo. Ako, sintag. Ilahin natin yan.
Ngayong linggo, 12:00 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together sa Net 25.
Ito ang Net 25 Primetime News. Matatag, matapang, matapat kasama sina Alex Santos, Emma Tiglao at Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Sad news in Hollywood today. Actor Anne Heche, or actress Anne Heche, has been declared legally dead 1 week after she crashed her car into a Los Angeles building, according to a spokeswoman on Friday. Heche, 53, had been comatose in hospital with a severe brain injury since the fiery collision on August 5. Having lost all brain function, she is legally dead, according to California law, though her heart is still beating as her family keeps her body on life support while exploring organ donations, according to spokeswoman Holly Baird. Celebrity gossip outlet TMZ, citing unnamed sources, said that Heche had tested positive for cocaine and fentanyl, with the latter sometimes used for pain relief in clinical settings. Heche rose to fame with her role on the soap opera Another World, for which she won a Daytime Emmy in 1991. She was nominated for a Tony Award for her appearance in 20th Century on Broadway in 2004. And here's an exclusive interview of MJ Racario, our correspondent in Los Angeles, with Hollywood actress Arisha Connor. MJ.
Age's just a number. Multi-awarded actress Arisha Connor acting alongside Oscar winners Samuel L. Jackson and Michael Keaton. I had a one-on-one interview with her. Take a look.
I know it's your dream
to work with the Samuel L. Jackson. Now, how did you get that gig with Samuel L. Jackson, The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray?
Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. You know, when I was reading in the trades, in Variety, I believe, or Deadline, and there was an article stating that he was going to be doing a movie called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. The first thing I did is I went and I got the book and I read it. And then I visualized myself as part of the story. I even took a character and I said, I'm going to be this character. And when the auditions came out, I got an audition. I was super excited. I did not book that role, but then I got another audition right after that from the casting company, which is always a good sign. And when I got that second audition, I was like, I just knew I'm gonna be a part of this. I'm going to meet my favorite actor of all time.
In the Last Days.
My character, I was a waitress in the diner that was his favorite diner. He would always come and order the same thing. So you would just see me in there taking his order and having small talk with him. Him and the other lead character, Dominique Fishback, who is also amazing. She's going to be in the new Transformers movie. So she's one of the leads in that movie. So she's doing amazing things too. But I was just having small conversations with them when they would come into the diner.
Once you have the grit and the passion and the hard work, what advice can you give for those who wants to work in Hollywood?
I'd say if it's something that you really want to do, set it as a goal. Don't let it go. Find yourself an agent or someone that is in that area or that's booking work in that area, and just continue to audition, take classes, and it doesn't matter how many times people say no. Don't let the no's dissuade you. Just keep going. Don't give up.
Fried thighs are coming.
Oh, well, thank you, Sonia. Well, you got to eat good. You want to be out here in these modern-day cotton fields.
I hear you. It might have been easier down home than up here.
That is it for entertainment news. I'm Jerry Connor here. Always tune in to Net 25. We live in an extraordinary times.
Thanks, MJ. And now, finally in our news, if you had the choice, would you rather go to the moon or Mars? The question is utterly theoretical for most of us, but for U.S. astronaut Jessica Watkins, it hits a bit differently. Let's listen in.
Well, in that reality, I certainly would be happy to be given the option for either location. And I guess the answer to the question would be whichever comes first. I certainly would be just absolutely thrilled to be able to be a part of the effort to go to another planetary surface, whether it be the moon or Mars. Certainly for me, as a planetary geologist who has done a lot of research on Mars in particular, but other planetary surfaces, the notion of being able to be a part of an effort to actually do field work on the surface of another planetary body is super exciting, and I look forward to being a part of it.
At 34, Watkins has many years ahead of her at the U.S. Space Agency, NASA, and could very well be one of the first women to step foot on the moon in the coming years as a member of the Artemis team preparing for upcoming lunar missions. Missions to Mars are off in the future, but given that astronauts often work into their 50s, Watkins could conceivably have a shot. Either way is just fine, she says. In the meantime, Watkins' first space flight was a history maker. She became the first Black woman to undertake a long-term stay on the ISS, where she has already spent 3 months on a mission as a mission specialist with 3 months to go. The Apollo missions that sent humans to the moon were solely staffed by white men, and NASA has sought over the years to widen its recruitment to a more diverse group of candidates. The agency now wants to put both women and people of color on the moon. As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed. because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.